Welcome to the Poetry Box Live. My name is Shawn Aveningo Sanders, and I'm thrilled you could join us for a little poetry today. For those of you who may be tuning into our show for the first time, my husband Robert and I run an independent press here in Portland, Oregon, known as the Poetry Box. And for today's show, we are celebrating 10 years of publishing poetry books for over 150 wonderful poets from across the United States. I'd like to take a moment to share with you how much this journey has meant to me. Publishing poetry has expanded my heart and my mind in countless ways. I'm so lucky to read all these manuscripts of poems, all these beautiful stories by poets from all types of backgrounds and lifestyles. I've always believed that when we share our stories, our truth, we're able to help each other grow and heal. And right now, our country is hurting and divided in so many ways. Writing and sharing poetry is a powerful vehicle for spreading the empathy and compassion that helps us start listening to and caring for each other again. Poetry is a beautiful way to share a little piece of ourselves with everyone who reads a poem or tunes in to hear a poet on a Zoom show. In the beginning, there were a few skeptics who thought I was crazy for wanting to work full-time publishing poetry books. But now I can't imagine doing anything else. My humble gratitude goes out to every single poet who has shared their poems with us, to all the authors we have published, and to the readers, listeners, and patrons of our humble press. We wholeheartedly look forward to the next 10 years of bringing beautiful poetry books into the world. And we're excited to celebrate our 10-year anniversary with 4 very talented poets. LeAnn Bjerken is joining us from Minnesota. Latorre will be reading to us from Southern California. David Belmont will be joining us from New York City. And Carolyn Martin, who was the first poet we published back in 2015, is joining us from here in Portland, Oregon. So let's get started with our first featured poet. LeAnn Bjerken is the author of Ordinary Omens, which is an exploration of moments in our lives that have a connection to the extraordinary. Originally from Minnesota, LeAnn Bjerken holds an MFA in creative writing from Eastern Washington University. A former journalist, freelance writer, and mermaid performer, she has temporarily traded in her fins for legs in order to better keep up with her daughter. Her poetry has appeared in Miracle Magazine, the Pacific Northwest Inlander, Spokane Coeur Living Magazine, and online publications including Devilfish Review, the Artistic Muse, The Lake, Fox Adoption Magazine, and Plant and Poetry Journal. It's my pleasure to welcome LeAnn Bjerken.
Hello, hello. Okay. So, the selections I've chosen tonight from my collection take inspiration from ordinary moments or encounters that, when re-examined, reveal how they shape our present and hint at our future. Sometimes these moments are fleeting, a glance, a ritual, an encounter with something small and fragile, but they linger in ways we don't always expect. This first poem is Luck of the Pisces. I was born near the Ides of March, the day before the day we celebrate the patron saint of Ireland. I'm told I weighed 9 pounds or so, my mother's cyan fish eyes peering out of a head far too large to match my tiny body. Golden hair that grew out slowly and spun sugar wisps, like the delicate wings of a flying fish. I remember the four-wheeler accident that almost left me scarred. Dad said I was lucky when he ran to hold me in his arms, after I'd lost my helmet and half the skin of my cheek to the shingles of a low-built barn roof. But there is no outward blemish. You tell me I am beautiful, and I know you wonder why I never see myself that way. It's probably just the little girl in me who remembers boys that never passed love notes and girls who snickered at my clothes. Maybe there was something in that piece of cheek, perhaps the thickest skin I ever had, a scaly island that took months to heal, loosening inside and finally floating away in the pool one day, mid-swimming lesson. So we don't choose where we begin, but the path ahead is always unfolding, written in the stars, the earth, and the quiet signs around us. So the next piece I have is called Fortuna Major. There is a science to the way the sand falls from lightly grasping fingers. It's the journey arising from underneath, the loam imprinting patterns on the brain. Every morning, the sun's song kisses the green, and somewhere an egg is hatching. Below, the earthworms must stay moist to breathe, strong bodies writhing forward, tunneling. The rabbit's instinct also is to dig and hide, following its secret niche. Power dances with desire in the dirt that we are made of, shifting in our veins, circling outward. Where stones cast down the mountain, seeds born up and away, rings around a planet, its golden center smoldering. Life moves through its cycles, one little life at a time, changing, growing, and hoping to get it right. This next piece is called The Chrysalis. Just gotta scroll a minute to find it. Almost. I shed my skin a last time, my child's soul sleeping beneath its round room. Sapphire edges of my forming wings held in a new cycle of dreaming, waiting to appear. The murmur of liquefied cells imagines a new form, paper arms breaking from their casings, finding the world from upside down, new blood rushing into my veins. I'm preparing to fly. Watch me breathe the wet green fear of outside, my delicately dusted skin crawling. Know that I have only this little life poised on the edge of a fingertip. So as we grow, we find someone to share our journey, sometimes in ways that we never expected. This next piece is not magic. I saw at first how well we go together. Two kids who both had trouble learning how to tie their shoes. We were used to finding the Velcro solution to every problem, having given up on bunny ear analogies and easy rhyming long ago. But some kind of magic united us, because something inside just fits. Almost as though a young girl wishing for love once bound her desire up in a cord and buried it out of sight, forgotten. At first it might appear simple, my end is tied to yours. But I know we both sometimes feel when the knots inside pull, painfully but sweetly, and we twist toward each other, on fire with their strength. Over time, love weaves itself into the small moments, growing alongside us, becoming a space we trust and return to. This next piece is Remember Breakfast. I think I have the wrong page for that. 1 second. I remember when you and I would spend the day in bed. Morning would stretch itself into yesterday's clothes, and we'd go out for breakfast in the afternoon. You gave me the yellow center of your eggs as we silently agreed to split the hash browns. I never felt alone until I felt the sunrise without you. Now, when I wake, the golden finches drop one by one into air, their song at the window hesitating, snagged in the curtains. I watch the world turn fresh coffee new, my hands a waiting cup, an empty breakfast plate. Over time, love deepens, not just in shared moments, but in what we choose to reveal and what we hold back. This next piece is called Holds. You hold the fancy napkin I want to leave my lip prints on, in the pink red that is fuchsia dream. The walls are so pale, I want to mark them too. Pull out my Sharpie to defile them with naughty words and dirty pictures. I want to have a food fight and later eat the leavings off your face, sitting on the floor and giggling until we can agree on what it is that holds us in, restrains our wildness, makes us seem like fish dancing on a line as time around floats on unchanged. Even in our safest spaces, there's a part of us that stays untamed, something quiet, wild, waiting to be seen. This next poem is The Rabbit, which also was the inspiration for the cover art for this collection. When I saw the baby cottontail running fast along the sidewalk, streetlights reflected in his eyes, I remembered that night we made frantic love on the roof of your van, warm metal pressed against my thighs, unprotected in the summer heat. With me on my back, did you see the falling stars reflected in my eyes? Feel the wild heartbeat in my chest building to a shining scream. We talked until sunrise, anxious, wondering if we created a mistake, making promises and choosing names. I'd forgotten all of it until I saw him, passing through dappled light, no grass, just warm pavement under paws, his frantic movement, his wide and fearful eyes. And oh, how I ached to love so small a thing. Love reshapes us, and with it comes the quiet pull towards what's next, even when we're not sure we're quite ready. This next piece is called Future Female Guppy. She lies drifting, bath tiles becoming a tropical sea that slides in and out of focus along the tub's porcelain shoulders. She's thinking of what the tarot reader said. 3 cards spread out before her, past, present, future. Shallow beach behind, instinctively moving into deeper waters. A dark unknown where living things drift quietly. Even now it's waiting somewhere beyond the frosted curtain. Be ready to swim. Her blood is warm now from the water, baby face scrubbed pink and clean. The foam settles on her like rainbow guppy scales, gently pressing, a heat glowing inside. So she lets herself feel it, imagining her skin stretched thin, struggling to hide the millions of orb-like eyes beneath, and they whisper. Stories of the bubbles bursting, water draining away, a heart on fire with new love, finding strength in every new struggle of their tiny minnow tails, mouths open in hunger, in wonder, born ready to swim. Some moments slip through our fingers before we can name them, yet we reach for them anyway, hoping they'll stay just a little longer. This next piece is called Dandelion. I take my coffee black in the morning when the dandelions have gone to seed, when wishes can float along under a cathedral ceiling of eternal blue. Yellow lions, jagged leaves like teeth in grass, bitter healing in their wine blood. I want there to be more moments where I can just be with you, all fingers and breath, seeds and air. Bright white energy giving way in a puff of shattered stars. We're always more than just one thing, pieces of us reaching out to settle the perfectly green lawns of paradise, sending our inside out, past what we know, to anywhere we wish. And after everything, we're left with reflection on love, on self, and on what comes next. This last piece is Prophet. Thought I knew who I was after all that time trying to find myself, but I'm still struggling to believe in my daydreams, those words that once seemed so deep and now feel like shallow reflections of something someone somewhere has already said. I used to think words could grow wings if only they were folded just right. A diary of origami birds taking to the sky. Can anyone really describe what love tastes like when you speak it aloud? Can I wait a wing beat before I say it back? Or will it dry out like red pressed petals at the back of my throat? Some people can float in the silence brought on by a frown, but I can't handle all that perfect emptiness. Something swells up inside, and I want to follow the birds back to the story's start and try again. We begin as children, full of wonder, carrying dreams we don't yet understand along the way, and love transforms us through the rituals we build, the moments we hold close, and the hopes that continue to unfold. In the end, we're always becoming, always reaching towards what's next. Thank you for listening. I hope these poems offered something to carry with you.
Well, thank you, LeAnn. That was just a lovely collection of poems. And I love finding all the bunnies and rabbits that pop up throughout the book. It really truly was an inspiration for that cover. And about that line in your last poem, I used to think words could grow wings if only they were folded just right. Well, I think you have folded these words just right, and these poems definitely have wings. So thanks for letting us fly along with you today. Next up, we have Luna Moore Latorre, author of CHRYSALIS, a collection which honors her heritage, explores grief and loss, and praises the natural world as a mechanism for personal growth. Luna writes both fiction and poetry while living in Southern California. CHRYSALIS is her first published poetry collection. Her second book, a novel, is soon to be published by Library Tales in July. More of Luna's work can be found in Literary Stories, Eunoia Review, Yellow Arrow Journal, and others. When she's not writing, she loves reading, dancing, hiking, and being with her cat, Da Vinci. It's my pleasure to welcome Luna Moore Latorre.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luna. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. I guess I'll get started with my first one. This is called Studies of Motion. I just arrange things. The only constant is movement. Outspread arms everywhere, each branch swimming through the wind, crow wings gliding, streetlights flashing on as twilight ends, sun dipping below the horizon, blue shifting to orange to pink to black. Earlier that day, one foot in front of the other. It's been a whole year since you kissed me, each whisper of the scrub jay shoving the air down, down, each sneakered foot smacking the earth down, down. This is another way of saying friends are better than lovers. Trees don't just move, they sway like dancers, giddy on tequila and the night's intoxication. So what that my heart shattered. I'm just so happy to be alive. All right. This next poem takes place in Colombia, which is where my mom's family is from, and just like about an amazing vacation we had there. This is called Nights in the Colombian Jungle. In the dark after sunset, when the mood is strong from speaking, talking, thinking in two languages, the place where life is sharpest, crisp wind caressing my face, everyone's Spanglish drowning out the cackling fire pit. So many shoulders I want to rest my head on, sitting in a circle, mid-laughter, relief in a hot tub, sore and aching from the hike to Cordoba waterfall, after ziplining over valleys of ceiba and acacia. Such bliss to take tequila shots around the fire. Arriba, abajo, al centro, pa dentro. The sweetest dizziness, each step becomes flying. To gasp over the number of stars. Am I tripping or does the sky glow brighter here? Flavorful first bites of bandeja paisa. Red beans, rice, sweet plantains, avocado, all in one divine gift. Each time I reached for another bite, I was grateful for abundance. Gorgeous glistening jungle in all directions, so green I wonder if it's a dream, but not even those could be so electric. Okay, this one is a little more sad. It's called Death is Not the Tragedy. Every day, its body more crushed, on the corner of Southeast 30th and Steel, feathers plastered on asphalt, now the eyes are gone, sinking feeling from my chest to my stomach, poor, poor bird. No burial, no lowering casket back into earth, no black hats and lace dresses, only a single creature flattened deeper into road. My throat tightens and constricts, losing as air as the pigeon loses feathers, both of us disappearing, yet never leaving. Death is not the tragedy. Instead, the day after day, this tiny crushed body, returning home only in the loneliest of ways. All right, this next one is called Heaven Submerged. A pebble swallowed by a lake, mountain air whipping against my cheeks one moment, crashing through water the next. Little red boat speeding away, motor sending waves my way. Submerged all over again, nothing but a girl, day after day wishing I was a pebble sinking into the depths. Algae twists into my hair, washes the heat off my face, my eyes fixed on the sand below. Density pulls me deeper, sun dims as water turns midnight. Now algae grows from my scalp. I am all chloroplasts of green and teeth. Salvation is underwater, down here is so far away from up there. All these years later, my lungs turn to gills. All right, this next one is called Miami Tropolis. We breeze by skyscrapers, lights like constellations from metropolitan heaven. I'm walking in bedazzled stilettos to our fifth bar of the night. Adrian and Zion take me from Tipsy Flamingo to Calle Ocho. Too cool to dance, so they talk and laugh while I dip, kick, and spin to Cuban jazz. Spin from 4 lavender Moscow mules. Beautiful women wave at me. I might die from the attention. Dancing turns every heartache to dust. Each movement drags them through the sweaty neon lights air to scatter little pieces so minuscule they never even existed. My cousin's talking big dreams. We are third generation of writers, our grandfather writing short stories in the tropics of Tamaulipas. As I struggle to stagger to the bathroom, plastic mermaids plastered to the wall, lipstick kisses on the mirror, singing the Last Club remix. Voy a reír, voy a bailar, vivir mi vida, la 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 la. Sing it again, again, a euphoria shining on in spite of it all. All right, this is called Prehistoric Love Language. Haley and I dance in the hotel room. Well, I'm dancing and she's in bed snacking. Despite gasolina blaring on my speaker. My cousin hands me the chile and limon Fritos. Our closeness so ancient dates back to birds and dinosaurs being cousins, the way cousins should be. Meeting up at Lake Guadavita each Friday over autumn and eagle fern cocktails, flying off Monserrate at sunset, landing in botanical gardens, inhaling the scent of orchids and chrysanthemums, helping each other pick the perfect bouquets for their loves across the lake. Here, take a little piece of my love. Take this one, and this one, and this one. This is this is called One Girl Rescues Another Girl from a Party. This is the worst Halloween party. Issue 1 is there's no snacks. When last night's party had chocolate peanut butter dipped Oreos. Issue 2 is my only friend here is talking to other people, so I have no one to follow around, and I'm not the type to talk to people I don't know. I should have stayed on my couch watching Futurama and dipping pita chips into a family-size hummus. Still, none of that is the worst part. Here it comes. The only alcohol provided is hoarded by a guy in a priest costume, who only allows 1 vodka shot per person. And I'm a lightweight at barely 5 feet tall, but I still need a second shot to feel euphoric. My ex arrives looking like an angel, here to carry me out of the pits of hell. She tells me, let's get out of here, and I take her hand, follow her to our favorite bar with the best hand-cut fries in Oregon, the blue raspberry vodka soda that tastes like candy and gets us drunk enough to keep touching each other's arms when one of us says something funny. Once we are alone, the conversation comes as easy as breathing. Never an empty space between the back and forth. I feed off of her like moonlight sipping the sun. That's how it glows so bright, you know. The moon's performance is all the sun, painting sets backstage. It's all in the best kind of endings. This is called Attack of the Ants. People always say, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks of you, but every regret floods my mind like ants from the drain in the heat of July. How badly I want to be the angel who drops everything to help, who only grows the sweetest fruit, smiles each morning, and never has a single argument. I run to the shower with a bucket of water, wash the ants down the drain, cry while I do it. Those poor little creatures who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I had no choice. I had no choice. They would have spread from the tub to the tile, to the stairs to the kitchen, would have eaten through the walls until there was nothing left of me. This is called Sometimes I Dream of Being a Tree. How much peace must a creature have to stay in one place for thousands of years, even as the leaves change from green to red to barren, back to green? Trees know the gift of stillness, to never be in a rush, never be teeth chattering, nail biting over next move, to sit with stump planted in the ground, roots guzzling the rain, leaves chewing the sunshine, bark inhaling the wind, knowing air is a different ghost depending on if it's night or day. How much peace must there be in having no mouth, no regret, no helplessness in the face of that which cannot be changed? I shouldn't have shouted back just to not feel small. This is the weight a tree never carries, perfectly at peace in all of the silence. This next poem is a little sad. It's about grief and it's about my great aunt. It's about my mom's aunt who we were both very close to. So this one particularly means a lot to me. It's called In My Dreams, We Walk Through Flamingo Park. Part of me expects to see my yaya every time I visit Miami, and the tsunami hits again when I remember she's gone. I can still feel the olive linen couch on my bare legs in summer, can still see Harry in her lap, a ball of white fur nestled against her blue floral shirt. It's been over a decade and her apartment is as clear as my own. The long set of stairs to get to it, the couch is so big all 15 of us could sit in a circle. Surrounded by her collection of clay figurines, buses, fruit, dolls. Behind them albums with photos of everything. Gum on someone's shoe or the back of someone's head. Long dark hair reaching the bottom of the frame. I can still hear her laugh at Zion and I racing each other down Lincoln Road. All these years later, the nightgown she gave me no longer fits, has multiple holes. Some nights I still wear it. If I close my eyes, her hand is still in mine, while we walk through Flamingo Park. I had no idea what part of the city it was. only that there were a lot of trees, and I resisted the urge to climb every one so I wouldn't have to let go of her. All right, this is my last one. Um, this is called From Stormlandia to Flowerlandia. It doesn't begin in the garden, it ends in the garden. Starts with drowning in a tidal wave so many times, there is no choice but to plant beans, peppers, squash. The boat is empty. I am the only one there. A nightmare as real as teeth. I pull a heart from the tree, who I would have been had I not spent so much of my life drowning. Burning, searing absence of roots splitting from lungs, flowers splitting from stomach, splitting from earth, splitting. The heart I should have had. Breaking is inevitable. The past offers no second chances. History is not the guy at Voodoo Donuts who gives me a bunch of free flavors for being hot, female, and 22. What is habitual is I am trapped by years I thought I watched disappear from the backseat of a beat-up Toyota. I return to the garden to remind myself to choose life. What could be better than sunflowers, whose face is smiling at me like I'm a rose and not a weed? What is better than being wanted? What could be better than a garden whose tomatoes taste of answered prayers, whose chili peppers taste of adventure the school year lacks? Cobalt sky that stretches so far it undoes years of feeling trapped. Behind it is a universe that never ends. I am comforted by the never ending. Why am I unable to let go? I ask this every day and never have an answer, but from the top of the hill, a child white knuckling a single monkey bar, smiling as the wind rocks their body back and forth, but never reaching for the next one. Wouldn't it be nice if I was not the only person in the boat? If I could reach into a tree and find nothing, because the heart I should have had was still beating between my lungs. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Luna. Thank you for reminding us what it's like to be so young. I really loved your ant poem. I love the way you use trees throughout the collection, especially swaying like dancers, giddy on tequila, and later how this is the weight a tree never carries, perfectly at peace in all the silence. I love that line. So thank you for sharing your poems with us today. Our next featured poet is David Belmont, the author of Obladi Oblada, which Mark Kaplan of the New York Times called a fun and rewarding ride, and you'll soon hear why. David Belmont is a mixed media artist and community organizer. He writes poetry, memoir, and short fiction. His debut poetry collection, World Gone Zoom, Notes from the American Epicenter, was published by the Poetry Box in 2021. Other writing has appeared in the Poeming Pigeon, Wildflower Muse, and Fish Food magazine. David has been a professional musician for over 50 years, producing 26 albums of his own work. He is vice president of Musician for Musicians and a member of the band Sosala, a mix of spoken word and dobro. David is on the faculty of the Eastside Institute, an international center that promotes radically humanizing approaches to psychology, education, and community building. He lives on the Upper West Side of Manhattan with visual artist Kim Svoboda and their labradoodle, Penelope. Please welcome David Belmont.
Hi, everyone. All right. Well, this is big fun. I always love Poetry Box Live, and it's great to be a feature here among other just wonderful poems and wonderful features. And Luna, after that performance, how many Moscow Mules was that exactly? I'm ready. So the book that I wrote has 3 sections: growing up, music, and portraits. I'll start off by reading 2 poems from each of the sections. The first is called Child's Play for Mom. 1977. Having lunch with LeAnn for the first time in a while, our nuclear family war in détente, out of nowhere she says, "Maybe I didn't hold you enough when you were a child." I think, has she gone Freudian on me? I don't remember one way or the other. She certainly didn't play with me. She was getting her doctorate. I get it. I say, it's all turned out okay. I'm fine with my childhood. 2009. She's in late stage dementia, dispassionately watching all news television, smiling at the same commercial every time it cycles through. I show up for my weekly visit. She becomes animated. She knows we're going to play the hat game. I collect the hats from the dresser top, hand a couple to her, put one on my own head. She models the hats, makes dramatic facial expressions, some serious, some goofy. I hand her a couple more hats. She points to the one on my head. I hand her that one too. We wordlessly go through all the hats, passing them back and forth in accelerated action. After about 20 minutes, she throws some hats across the room and cackles. I laugh along. She returns to the television. Until next time. Thank you. Gift for my father, 1973. On a visit home, out of the blue, you said you were proud of me. A recent college dropout at the time, I was surprised. Saw you in a new way that made my inside smile. 2005. You were feeling good that day. Went to the neurologist without your walker. I said, he's not gonna like this. You shrugged as you shuffled down the hall beside me, bound for his corner office. There was a lightness in your step that had been absent for some time. You were in your element, talking synapses with a fancy Mount Sinai doc. Well, turns out I was right. He didn't like your lack of walker. A lecture ensued, whose vibe I caught, including details I didn't note, even though it was my job to do so. We paused in the waiting room. That was what you were like as a teenager, right? You give me that quasi-Buddhist nod and tilted your smiling face. 2009. We are home from the oncologist discussing the final treatment he offered. Infusions 5 days a week for 6 weeks might extend your life for maybe 3 months. Pretty daunting, I say. What do you want to do? With a pained look, you say, what would you do? I'd get off the train. You nod, slowly curl your lip, extend your forefinger. 2009. At your memorial, Uncle Howie tells a story I've never heard. How you, him, and Uncle Morty were the security team for Paul Robeson. Armed with baseball bats, you all protected him one day in Brooklyn. Just then I realized that you were the leader of that communist cell. It was my time to be proud. Thank you. Now a couple from the music section. Bob Dylan's in the news these days, right? We got a movie Academy Award nominations, the whole bit. Early Dylan, what can be bad, right? So here's a poem called Bob Dylan. David Lerner played me Bringing It All Back Home right after it came out. I was enthralled from the opening strum of Subterranean Homesick Blues to the final fade out on the last chord of It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. I saved my allowance for months to purchase his 4 previous albums. When I started to play guitar, With God on Our Side was my first song. My next 20 plus songs were all his. Most self-learned, some with wrong chords. For Blonde on Blonde, I bought the songbook along with the LP. worked up a version of every song. The first time I saw him perform was the Woody Guthrie Memorial Concert, June 1968, Carnegie Hall. Me and a couple of friends bought tickets from a scalper, 3 second-row seats for $40. Bob was accompanied by what would become the band. Robbie Robertson played a beat-up old K acoustic with a pickup. Bob shouted Grand Coulee Dam with a voice of passion, reverence, and mystery. When I got home, my father tried to castigate me for spending so much money on the tickets. I said, let's talk about this in 10 years. You'll see how wrong you were. The last time I saw him perform was at the Beacon Theater, September 2019. He played Girl from the North Country, standing up, lyrical harmonica over acoustic bass, with a wistful feel appropriate to his age. Thank you. Now here's a short one about learning how to play lead guitar. Gil Schwartz, University Settlement Camp, summer 1967. A large, dank shed, a small drum set, 2 guitar amps. I walk in, my first ever electric guitar in tow, and there is Gil, wailing away on a Telecaster, the same model Mike Bloomfield was playing on the back of the first Butterfield album. What you got there? A Fender Jaguar? Plug in. He starts a basic blues rhythm. I try to mimic the chords. Play some lead. I shrug, shake my head. He shows me where my fingers should go. Returns to playing rhythm. I fumble around, try to reproduce what he's shown. Sometimes it sounds good. Thank you. Now a couple from the portrait section. Harry Kresge, March 2024. Harry was a free speech guy in an American way that might be considered old school in this era of public shouting. As an activist, he fought to give poor Black and brown people voice. Not in some abstracted ideological sense, but the actual voices of actual people. Harry loved philosophy. As a lawyer back in the 80s, he and philosopher Fred Newman cooked up some wild litigation to open up political speech. I don't really remember what the lawsuits were about, but they weren't so much about what they were about. They were about Harry and Fred cooking up these lawsuits. Harry loved conversation, and he said some of the wildest things. We were both big fans of psychedelics. He often said his experience with Fred was one long acid trip. For Harry, this was not a metaphor. During the early days of the pandemic, he and I would do these long phone calls. One time he said, "Are we closing down the world just to save some old people?" And of course, he was one of them. Late in life, Harry explored the more contemplative side of things. He got into fishing and poetry. I never got to fish with him, which is probably a good thing given my highly urban sensibility. Poetry was another matter. Harry was a proselytizer for poetry. He called his blog Poems for Friends. He wrote his poems for friends, and he invited his friends to write poems and then posted them on his blog. His friends did a reading of his poems on Zoom. Harry was incommunicative when it came around. He sat in front of his computer and listened. You know, they say hearing is the last sense to go. He died the next day. Thank you. This next one is a prose poem with an epigraph. Affordable housing for Joe Prince, May 2011. The reason they call it the American dream is because you have to be asleep to believe it. George Carlin. Joe will not give up his place in the North Bronx. He lived there for over 20 years. He was evicted a year ago. He still has the mailbox key and insists that his disability check be sent there each month. I accompany him to housing court, his fourth or fifth appearance before the same judge. I sit in the court pews while Joe stands at the table with his well-worn, overstuffed leather briefcase companion. The judge tells Joe that he doesn't hear any new arguments. But Joe's argument is his lumbering self and his homelessness. This is new every day. The judge, however, doesn't see it that way. He says this is the last time he will hear Joe's case. Go to housing and apply for a new apartment. It's clearly not the first time he said this to Joe. I've known Joe since the 1980s, when we were organizers with the New Alliance Party. He's a quite intelligent gay black man. He understood the post-civil rights movement hustle, got a few degrees from Columbia University. He's also crazy, got AIDS dementia, a common strain of poverty madness. We go to housing. They've got special social workers for people with AIDS. A Latino man in his mid-40s remembers Joe. He's glad that Joe has a middle-class white guy with him. He addresses Joe looking at me the entire time. He hands us a listing of possible apartments. It's a photocopy of ads cut out of newspapers, randomly laid out on a sheet of paper. I ask, do people really get apartments this way? He says, sometimes. We go downstairs to the street, exhausted. No way we're checking any of these leads today. I hand Joe the paper with the ad collage. He asks me for a pen. He writes the date in the upper right corner of the page and hands it back to me. Then he rummages through his briefcase, pulls out a manila folder and hands that to me. The folder contains 3 sheets of paper, each identical to the sheet we were given today, but with a different handwritten date in the upper right corner. Same layout, same listings. You ever check any of these out? Joe smiles and nods. Yeah, all of them. They're all brokers. They took one look at me and they have nothing available. I ask him why he's saving the papers. For when I sue the city. I smile and nod. Good luck with that, brother. We laugh and hug. Joe heads up the block, maybe to his sister's place for a few days. I head down the block toward the subway, home. Thank you. Now, some of you who have the book may have noticed that this book is very Beatles. The title's taken from a title of a song on the White Album. The epigraph for the book are lyrics from a song on Rubber Soul. So I'd like to continue the Beatles tiff by going to Abbey Road. Now, some of you will remember this. On the original vinyl LP, there was a hidden bonus track at the end of the album. If you left the needle on the record for about 15 seconds after the end of side 2, you hear Paul serenading the Queen. So I'm going to close with a bonus track, the poem that opens the book. It's a dedication to my life partner of some 37 years, Kim Svoboda. Among many things, Kim is a fabulous visual artist. It's her work that adorns the cover of the book. Love and belief for Kim. I don't believe in truth, evil, or the self. Yet I'm tired of being lied to and have met some evil dudes. And when you bring your sweet self over here, I could believe in anything. Thank you.
Oh, David. Bravo. You really took us on a wonderful journey. I absolutely love these poems. I love this book. The one about Harry chokes me up every time because you just turn that ending so quick, and with that hearing being the last sense to go is just like, oh, gets me every time. In your poem, Affordable Housing circa 2011 it's such a testament to the faltering American dream and how, unfortunately, we haven't made much progress towards solving that problem. And that's sad. But David, it's always such a treat to hear you recite poems, and you really bring them to life and give us a lot to think about. So thank you for sharing with us today. Our final featured poet today is Carolyn Martin, author of Splitting Open the World, which explores a world split open in poems about family and friends, about life as an English teacher and Roman Catholic nun, and about the inspiration lurking in the everyday. A lover of gardening and snorkeling, feral cats and backyard birds, Carolyn Martin embraces poetry as her way of interacting with the world, in images, rhythms, sounds, and intensities of language. That is why she settled into the joyful task of translating experience into as few words as possible. Her poetic aesthetic is found in Galway Kinnell's statement, "To me, poetry is somebody standing up and saying, with as little concealment as possible, what it is for them to be on earth at this moment." Carolyn's poems have appeared in more than 200 publications throughout North America, Australia, and the UK. The Poetry Box has been lucky enough to publish 3 of her prior collections: The Way a Woman Knows, Nothing More to Lose, and The Catalogue of Small Contentments. It is my honor to introduce my dear friend, Carolyn Martin.
Thank you very much, Shawn and Robert, and all of you who have hung in through our technological challenges. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, I can see you. The honor of having the 10th anniversary collection is all mine, Shawn and Robert. Splitting Open the World got its title from a Muriel Rukeyser quotation. She said, "What would happen if one woman told the truth about her life? The world would split open." So in this collection, I split open my world with truths about, as Shawn said, family, friends, neighbors, but also about tigers and butterflies and ants, about my career in academia and in the business world, and 20 years as a Roman Catholic Sister of Mercy in New Jersey. Born, bred, raised Catholic, and then culminated in those wonderful years. And you can imagine how many hours that meant on my knees and in church. So it's fitting that I begin with a church poem. This is a poem that had to be written somewhere along the line. And the poem is called Sermon. Sunday Mass, and the priest explains, "The good Lord likes simplicity. Why struggle with 10, he said, when you need to practice only 2? Love God and your neighbor as yourself. The others, a 4-letter word will do." I slinked down in my seat, guilty and ashamed. I could take his buy, or rather, I could buy his take if it weren't for the hard-to-love neighbor next door. She hates my guts, but won't say why. Ignores my plans to chat and squawks about my faults around our cul-de-sac. She must have heard me swear when the skunks dumped my plastic pots and raccoons dug up my lawn. Or she takes offense at the peanut shells I throw into her flower beds. They're hers, I rationalize. Compliments of the feeder squirrels adore on her backyard fence. Venial sins, I admit, she adds up. Anyway, I'll ponder the words, maybe find forgiveness is another name for love, and take guilt and shame for a stroll. Whatever shows up, I want to reclaim one ancient rule. Keep holy the Sabbath day. Loving others, much less myself, fatigues. I need to rest at least once a week. I am just so thrilled that 3 of my Sister of Mercy friends are on this Zoom. These are wonderful women that I've known for 62 years, and we share a lot of history. And one of them has been suffering terribly with acute anxiety. And what I didn't know was that this type of anxiety causes debilitating pain to the body. So when she called me one day with a message that she was doing better, I was thrilled and was inspired to write this poem. To a dear friend dealing with acute anxiety. Your call yesterday was a relief. 2 good days, you said. Back pain eased, heart settled down, and the doe you've tracked through flower beds and trees befriended you. A spirit guide, I laughed, and you agreed. Now you share you're lost in a forest of grief. Family, friends, colleagues gone, and losses devastate. I hesitate to tell you this, for it's mine to own. I've held grief in my arms and walked it up and down city streets. I've stood at gravesides as it tumbled to the ground. I've learned from betrayal and hurt, cruelty and loss. There is no grief like ours, and earth is rich with it. So what to do, dear friend, when your grief consumes? Go outside and find your guide. She's waiting for you. She'll probably advise that grief is a mystery that can't solve itself. Ask her how to befriend emptiness until the joy chasing you catches up. Ask her to confirm it takes eternities to fill voids, and in that space and time, blessings are yours to give. If you listen deeper than you thought you could, you might hear that grief is another name for love. Thank you. One of the other truths that split our world open right now is the plight of the unhoused. I don't think we can go very far and not see tarps and tents and on cross streets and highway ramps, people asking for help. This is one encounter that split open this truth for me. The poem is called Hunger. Tuesday noon, and I'm stuck at the red light at Stevens and Sunnyside, across from a scrawny guy and his black crayoned food sign. No, need help, out of work, homeless veteran. No dog or kid or grocery cart filled with a life. Just a skinny arm holding up one syllable. And I'm back to my mother's Thanksgiving bird, green bean casserole, and fruit caught in jello, while my aunts hover over uncles, ranting about stolen jobs and immigrants. They keep their whiskey glasses full, while we kids count down the time from grace to the stampede toward the living room where the cowboys kick off their holiday ritual. Just as the light begins to change, the fellow pockets my $10 bill and heads for A&W, or maybe KFC. And I'd like to think a fullness he needs. If I dared to follow him, we could sit and chat about the emptiness we share and how to strategize to fill it up. But the Tesla behind my Honda sits on its horn. I wave sorry from my rear view and settle for a whisper to myself, good luck. 10 minutes to home, no more signs. The refrigerator's full of salads and silences. Another current reality in our world, which is being split open every day, is the whole issue of climate change. This poem is called Timelines, and it begins with an epigraph from an article from the National Geographic. The epigraph reads, "Climate change is upending nature's timing, bringing early melt to the snows that propel summer wildfire seasons and rearranging life in unpredictable ways." Timelines. My mother always said you could count on spring to be spring after heavy winter snow. Then on cue, June's humidity slid in, and summer invited us to crawl down the Garden State for relief at the Jersey Shore, until autumn arrived and school kids drilled math up and down rigid rows where nuns praised the virtue of memorizing everything. But now, snow has forgotten when to melt, and glacier lilies bloom too soon, confusing hummingbirds arriving from Mexico. Not to mention millions of Muirs missing feeding grounds in warming West Coast waves, or snapping shrimp losing their percussive beat. Every living thing is scrambling to memorize seasons that won't stand still. I'm relieved my mother cross-cut this futility. She clocked out in sync with her own timeline, believing snow would melt before pansies and bleeding hearts announced an on-time spring. Thank you. Indeed, my mother did clock out on her own timeline in October of 2022. And as a matter of fact, there is a picture of her on the cover, and I think she would be thrilled. She was 98 years old, 7 months and 11 days. And the book is dedicated to her. So inevitably, there are a lot of poems about that most complex of all human relationships, the mother-daughter relationship. Here is one poem that illustrates that. It's called To My Mother on her first anniversary. Every week since you've died, I caught myself gathering news for our Sunday ritual. You in your New Jersey nursing home, trying to remember how to answer a phone. Me roaming our Oregon yard, inviting you piece by piece into my private life. How predictable each call. I'd only dramatize an opening line before you'd interrupt with a performance of your own. How you woke to find a man sleeping on your couch. How convulsions hurled you out of bed. How you guided your way through Italy, Egypt, Greece, but lost the words for stamp, birthday card, address. In retrospect, My reports were minor affairs: trip to the coast, a new book of poems, the harsh September rains that snapped our crepe myrtle tree. Yours, like tracking rowdy clouds through flowering chestnuts, kissing golden oak, sometimes surprised with poetry. But hear me out this time and don't interrupt. Words and time are what I need. Someday, when I've grown closer to myself and cycles of shame and rage disintegrate, someday, I suspect, I'll rewrite the story of your life with unscarred love and awe. And if truth splits open wide enough, I'll use your name with reverence in odes, not elegies. People have told me that sometimes when they've had rituals with loved ones and the loved one has passed, it kind of takes some time to realize that that ritual is not going to happen in the way they normally experienced it. In addition to the Rukeyser quotation, which is an epigraph that opens my book, there is another epigraph that I love. It's a line from a William Matthews poem. The line is, I'm in these poems because I'm in my life. I'm in these poems because I'm in my life. As you read through this collection, you will peer through a window into my life. However, if you look carefully enough, you just may find a mirror reflecting your life back to you. Your loves, your grief, maybe shame and regret, joy and awe. And so when the time is ripe, it may be your gift to split open that world and share it with people around you. And that is my wish for you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, gosh. Carolyn, you know, it's no secret that I am a big fan of your poetry. I'm awed by your ability to tell a story in such a distillment of language and still manage to have so many layers within each poem. And I've read all of your poetry collections several times, but this one, I have to say, is my favorite. You really bring a new level of intimacy and vulnerability, which really makes lines like befriend emptiness until the joy chasing you catches up, or the fridge is full of salads and silences. They just resonate on such a deep level with the reader because you make us feel and relate to all the details in a really authentic way. I can't thank you enough for letting us help birth this book into the world, but I also want to thank you for being the impetus for this whole publishing adventure. You, my friend, are a gift to the poetry community and to everyone who knows you. So let's have a giant round of applause for all of our readers today. I'd like to thank our 4 talented poets, David Belmont, Luna Moore Latorre, LeAnn Bjerken, and Carolyn Martin. Thank you, our audience, for supporting our authors, being patient with us today as we work through some things, and joining us for another edition of the Poetry Box Live. We are taking a break for April, but we'll be back for a new show on Saturday, May 10th, with featured poets Sandra Rendig, Kathy Kane, Marjorie Moorhead, and Rebecca Blumel. And for all of you poets out there in our audience, the Poetry Box Chapbook Prize is open for submissions for 1 more week through March 15th. Our guest judge this year is one of my favorite poets, George Bilger. You can find all the details on our website at thepoetrybox.com. And while you're there, feel free to subscribe to our newsletter. There's a sign-up form at the bottom of each webpage. Thanks again for joining us today. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And don't forget to spring your clocks forward tonight for daylight savings time.